Welcome back to Nest Talk, the Emory Eagles podcast. My name is Taylor C. I'm the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications at Emory. And today I'm so excited we get our first Emory alum on the podcast, Annika Urban.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so what was it like? Let's just jump right in. What was it like growing up in Pittsburgh? When I think Pittsburgh, I think like the city of sports, and maybe that's just me, but you've got the Pirates and the Steelers and the Penguins. Like, it's such a
Yeah,
big place.
absolutely. No, and we're absolutely Steelers fans through and through, of course. Growing up in Pittsburgh, you kind of can't avoid the sports. I had my senior prom. I remember the night of a Penguins hockey game, like right at the hotel next to the hockey game, and everybody went outside and watched on the Jumbotron during my senior prom. Like definitely a big sports city. I loved growing up in Pittsburgh. Despite the ice and the snow and the cold sometimes. No, it was a great place to grow up. Yeah.
I think I grew up in Virginia, and so I'm definitely not as north as Pittsburgh is, but I'm sure moving down to Atlanta had to have been a very big
For
thing for
sure.
weather.
Yeah. And honestly, the first time I visited Emory, I think I visited in March. And so in Pittsburgh, it was so cold and icy. And I came down to Atlanta and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yeah, I was thrilled to learn that, you could be actually warm in March. So
So let's jump right into your high school career. And I'm going to just kind of read a little bit of what you had done so everybody knows. You had 11 varsity letters in cross country, indoor, and outdoor track. You helped Fox Chapel to a 2017 state title in cross country. You were named a cross country MVP and most inspirational. Holy cow, like that's a tongue twister. That's so much. How did you do that? What was that like?
yeah, I had a really awesome team in high school, and I had a really great coach in high school. I started running cross country in middle school, and then joined the cross country team in high school. And actually, the first year that I ran cross country in high school, our team had never made it to a state championship before as a women's cross country team. And then by my junior year of high school, we as a team won a state title. So that was pretty awesome to kind of see, that whole progression. We had, again, an amazing group of women who were just really happy to be running and dedicated and inspired. And that was really, really fun. And so for me, like seeing, I think how everybody thinks of running as an individual sport. And for me, seeing that team aspect in high school was really amazing because it showed you that, running was beyond just me going out for a run. It really could be a team thing, even though people don't really think of it that way very often, which was incredible. And I, again, just like had a really supportive group of teammates and a great coach. Yeah, it was awesome.
How do you kind of mentally prepare for that, knowing, okay, like we're kind of building this program from the ground up?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's always in running, I'm always like looking looking to find a new goal or the next big thing. And so when I got to high school, beyond it just being, okay, like I can qualify for the state meet individually, it was like, well, how do we make this even more special? And I think getting a group of people who have that same mindset of we really want to do this together. And it was amazingly special being the first time that that team had ever qualified for a state championship my sophomore year and then ever won a state championship my junior year. Like it just feels so much bigger when it's part of a team. So I think just having everybody aligned on the same goal, it can be a little scary, but then at the same time, you remember that everybody out there is just a high school kid who's, you know, shooting for the same kinds of goals. But if everybody out there is starting on the same starting line, there's no reason why you can't be first as a team.
You've talked about your teammates and your coaches being supportive, but I want to hear more. Your family, your community, how does that support system help you?
Yeah, I think I mean, like you said, having a support system around you is so, so incredibly helpful, and having people around you who support you in what you do and love you and are there for you when things are really good and also there for you when you need a little bit of help is so important. And I love the community I grew up in. I grew up just about a half mile from the high school, and so I was really always running on the same roads and always around the same people, and it really was those people who are there to support you are means so much. And when it's, the middle of COVID and there you can't see anybody, and but you know that everybody's there for you, you like really feel that. And then those same people are there for you. Like when I end up in college and I'm doing really big things in college, they're still there for me. And just knowing that those people are always there really, really makes it a huge, huge impact, not only in the big moments, but also in the everyday moments.
I want to ask because I said here you were named the most inspirational. And just hearing you talk now, like you have such good wisdom, and I can see why you were named that. How do you kind of in high school, you're now doing these big things and helping your program. How do you kind of step into that leadership role?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things. I think I learn a lot from my coaches and from people who older people when I started college, the people who were seniors in college when I started. I think it's being people are leaders in a lot of different ways. I'm not a super like pep talk style leader. I'm more of like a lead by example kind of leader in the small moments. And I think it's important to be there for people at all times, whether it's like, just going up to somebody after a workout who maybe is looking like they're not really feeling it and asking them what's going on. It's not always those big moments, those big like quarterback of the football team runs out onto the field moments. For me, it's really those smaller relationships. And I think just having a positive spin whenever you can. Everything's going to be hard. Sports are hard. Like you're going to get injured. It's going to be hard. Like that's, obviously part of it. But I think being able to put some sort of like, positive or learning spin on as much as you possibly can helps out everybody around you. If you're having a bad day and you're showing everybody that, then nobody, people are also going to have a bad day. But if you're, having a bad day and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to get through this, and you put a positive spin on it, it's going to help everybody else around you. So that's kind of how I think about leadership.
Awesome. I want to can stay on the high school topic for a second.
Yeah.
And I think I've asked this to all of our guests so far, but in high school too, you were like education was such a big thing. In 2019, you were named a National Merit Finalist. You were part of National Honor Society. So how do you kind of go through that? And especially as an athlete where you're competing all year round in cross country and track, like where in the world do you find time for a break?
Yeah, obviously academics have always been really, really important to me. And I think honestly, I tell people this all the time that I really think I perform at my best academically and now in my job when I am also active athletically. I really think for me, just personally, it's a helpful thing. Like I get my running in, my workouts in, whatever at the beginning of the day, and the rest of the day feels calm, feels like a breeze. And that's honestly, for me, it's really helpful personally. I think everybody, balances that in their own ways. But for me, they really just go hand in hand. And I think one helps the other out. And it's always worked out well for me. So
I want to get in now. Let's talk about your recruiting process to Emory. And we kind of talked about the weather being a little bit of a factor already.
yeah, absolutely. So I started looking at Emory at some point in college. I, was looking at a bunch of different schools, but when I came down and visited the campus, I immediately was like, this is where I need to be. And it was really, I went to like one of the admission sessions, and the person at the admission session what gave her a little, talk, and she told a story about like failing an exam, and there was a professor, she was an alumni of the school, the woman who was giving the admissions session talk. She was talking about how she had failed an exam and the professor had called her into his office and she was like worried that he was going to be like, oh, you did horribly on the exam, whatever. And instead he asked her how she was doing. Did she miss her family? Did she miss her dog? Like, and I thought, I was like, in that moment, I really felt like Emory would be a place where people would care about me as a person and not necessarily just about my grades and scores and achievements. And I think absolutely that has been so true. That was so true through my entire college career. But that was something that immediately when she told that story, I was like, yeah, I want to be at a place where people care about me as a person. And so combined with obviously the beauty of campus and everything, that really hit home for me. And then I met the team and just really sealed the deal. So
It sounds like that support system that you had in high school carried right into Emory.
yeah, I was really looking for a place that I felt comfortable in and felt like I wanted to call home. And I think the people really make a home a home. And I just totally, I knew that I would find that at Emory, and I was lucky that I was right. And I can't talk enough about how much I loved Emory. So
All right, so freshman year, you get here, compete in cross country. You had your best finish at Barry at the Barry Invitational. How was that first season of cross country? How was it different than high school? Was it kind of the same? Were you nervous?
yeah, I definitely was not one of those people who just came into college and immediately was doing really well. Like I had some reasonable finishes and I ended up racing at nationals my freshman year, but I was seriously, I think I was like 260 something at nationals my freshman year. It was by no means spectacular. And it wasn't necessarily like because it was that much of a physical transition. Like I was doing a little more mileage, but nothing crazy. And, I'd been lifting in high school, nothing crazy. And so I think it really was, though, kind of getting acclimated to the environment my freshman year. Everybody's going to go through that and kind of figure that out. And I think getting settled in college is hard. So yeah, I mean, my freshman year was a great learning experience. I think really it was a good time to form those relationships, to get an idea in my head of like, who is it that I want to be in college? Do I want to really, really focus in on running and what is my major going to be and all those different decisions that you make. So yeah, nothing spectacular my freshman year, but I set a lot of good foundations then, which obviously helped me out in future years.
And I'm sure it was kind of tough too. You're now like you're on your own and you're an adult. You've got to figure out your schedule and time management and practice and all of that.
Absolutely. And yeah, and nobody's ever really taught you how to do that exactly. And figuring it all out is fun for sure. But I think once you get it down, then you can actually start to like really focus in on studies and at the same time get even better at athletics. So,
So you started in, I guess it was 2019 into 2020 started indoor season.
mhm.
And then obviously we went into the pandemic. And so how did you kind of handle that mentally? Did it take a toll on your mental health, not being able to compete? I want to hear about that whole process.
Yeah. So our last meet before COVID was the UAA Championships indoor. I went and raced the 3K indoor track and I was last in the conference by a reasonable amount. It was not my greatest moment. And I was obviously like not satisfied with that. And then we went home and obviously we had no idea whether we were going to be able to compete the next season or if we were going to be back on campus. And I was kind of like, at first, I was like, what am I doing this for if we don't even know when we're competing? Like, why am I going out and running every day? And for a little while, I went through that period. And then actually, my younger brother was still in high school at the time, and he was running as well. And he was like, Annika, just come with me. Like, I'm going for a run anyway. Just come with me. Like, you'll feel better if you just go for a run. And so I started running with him, and I am a competitive spirit through and through and could not let my younger brother beat me. And so I started running with him, and I was like, no way in heck is he gonna beat me. So that kept me motivated for a while, and we ran together so much during the pandemic. It was, I mean, having him there was the best thing ever. And eventually, when we like learned that we might be coming back and that things were gonna be okay, then I was like, okay, you know what? I want to come back and I want to be so much of a better version of myself. And this is right now during COVID, we had nothing else to do. So why not? Why not put it all into running? Why not challenge myself in ways I hadn't before? And that was also, I think, a time to kind of take risks to say, like, I'm gonna try running this long run a lot faster than I usually do and see what happens. Because if I fail, nobody's watching me. And I really think that freedom of like, nobody's watching me right now, so I might as well try, um, allowed me to like make really big jumps during the pandemic.
Do you think it was easier because the two guests that we've had before they were on team sports and so they can't practice with their teams like they can. Do you think it was easier for you, being able to you don't have to go to a field or go to an arena or something to practice?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I think we saw that like so much during the pandemic. Everybody started running because it was the only thing you could do. Like you literally could not. And I was a swimmer before in in my much younger years. I was a swimmer. And I remember thinking during the pandemic, I was like, I can't imagine being a swimmer at this point, having to try to find a pool. Like, what would you even do? And so yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people turn to things like running and cycling to to find anything to do. So I was just lucky that my sport was something I was able to do during the pandemic, and yeah, really, really lucky. So
Well, you sure came out of it with, it sounds like a different mentality. And so now you're in your junior year when you start competing again in cross country. You have one of the best cross country seasons. You landed 4 times in the top 12 in program history. And like, holy cow, you came out of that totally different.
yeah, I really that time during the pandemic was really special, and I learned a lot about, taking care of my body and all of that. And I just had a lot of time to like figure out what my priorities were. And so yeah, we came back that junior cross country season and I surprised everybody, including myself, and really it was just I loved it so much more too. I think the pandemic made me appreciate things also a lot more. And so I came into that season feeling a lot more like well-rounded and grounded and appreciative. And I think that also really helped. So
So you come out of finishing last in the conference at UA's the year before, and then you come into track after that and become an All-American. What in the world were you thinking in your head in that moment?
yeah, I look back on that and I'm like, that is an absolutely, it still kind of blows my mind a little bit that that much of a jump happened in through COVID. I think that track season, I was like, I was really, I had it in my sights that I wanted to be an All-American, and I ran two different events that outdoor season. I ran the 5K and the 1500, and I had thought that my 5K would be the chance for me to be an All-American. And then I like made it through the prelim round of the 1500 and felt really, really good. And I was like, hey, I could become an All-American in the 1500. And yeah, that was kind of crazy. I was really finding my strengths at that point and discovering new strengths. It's so much fun. So yeah.
So I had to take a picture of your senior accomplishments because there were way too many to write down and I wouldn't have any room on my notebook. So let me just read some of these to you
Okay.
for those who don't know. So you were another All-American in the indoor season in the mile and the 3,000 meter. You were the Southeast Region Track Athlete of the Year. You were all region in 4 different events. This is all during the indoor season alone. You were UAA championship or a UAA champion in the 5,000 meter. You were the most outstanding performer in the UAA. And then come outdoor season, you were another All-American, Region Track Athlete of the Year again, UAA most outstanding performer. Like the list just goes on and on and on. That's not even all of it. So
Yeah.
even just from junior to senior year, how did you kind of change your mentality maybe or just say, hey, you know what? I like winning. I'm gonna go do it again.
Yeah. That's pretty much how it happened. I said I like winning and I don't like losing. I went into my senior year before cross country season, I sat down with my coach and we said, I can win a national title this year. And whether that was going to be cross country, indoor track, outdoor track, I was like, I'm going to leave school having won a national title. And so that was always every step of the way in the back of my head. And I think that having that in the back of my head every race, I was like, I'm not going to let anybody beat me because at the end of this season, I'm going to be a national champion. So I think I won like, I don't know, a whole bunch of meets in cross country season. And I was, this is so much fun. I really, winning is obviously so much fun. And so I then went into the national championship in cross country and we were in Lansing, Michigan, and it snowed like 6 feet the day before the race. And despite being from Pittsburgh, I don't love the cold. And I ended up, I think, sixth in at cross country nationals. And I was a little disappointed. I was like, I think my training says that I am better than this. But given the circumstances, I knew that I had given it my everything. And that was all I could ask for from myself that day. And so I went into track season thinking, what is it going to be? Which event is it going to be? And so I really, just every race, I was like, I want to prove time and time again, prove to myself and to prove to the world that I am going to be the best every time I finish. And I even going into the national championship, we have to so I would qualify in a couple different events, but then I decide which events I actually want to race at the national championship. And you have to kind of pick and choose because different events are on different days. You can't do too many events. So I ended up deciding to really go all in on the indoor mile. And I raced the prelim. I felt amazing. And I was like, this is the night before I won the national championship in the mile. It felt like the night before Christmas. I was just so excited because I was like, I know I can do this. And tomorrow I'm going to be a national champion. And I think just having that confidence, it comes from hours and hours and hours of training and recovery and all of that. But at the end of the day, that feels so good. And that confidence to say, I'm going to win a national championship today feels amazing. So just I mean, that was obviously an incredible experience. That meet where I won my first national title was in Birmingham, and we race at the Birmingham Crossplex all the time for indoor track. And so it kind of felt like it's not home, but it kind of felt like home. My whole family was there, and it was amazing. I yeah, couldn't ask for anything else. That was incredible. And then went into outdoor season with similar goals of, doing really well in a whole bunch of events at the UAA meets, at the conference meets. It's not just about winning one event, but it's about getting as many points for the team as possible. And so I ended up running the 4x4 and a whole bunch of events. I love those meets. I mean, it's how hard can you push yourself through a whole weekend to win as many events as possible or to do well as possible in as many events as possible? Really fun. So yeah, those meets are always awesome. And then I went into outdoor season knowing that now I was kind of defending a title in the 1500 and was able to do that and also still become an All-American in the 5K. So really couldn't ask for anything else. Just, I think at that point, all of the training built up, all of the confidence was there. And I was really, really happy. So
Well, we have to mention too, you weren't just an indoor national championship. You set an NCAA championship record with that
yeah.
run too. And
Yeah.
that was amazing.
Yeah, I had no idea what the or the championship record was when I was going into that race. And then I finished and I was like, did they just say I was hearing over the loudspeaker? I was like, did they just say I set a championship record? Very cool. Again, not something I was expecting, but very cool. I mean, that race, I just remember so an indoor mile, the laps are pretty short. They're 200-meter laps. And so I just remember going into the last lap thinking, oh my gosh, I have 200 meters to my national title. That, it was crazy and just so much adrenaline there. And so I think I PR'd by a good couple of seconds in that race, but it's just a special environment.
Well, you knew too. I will never forget watching it and then seeing the photos that came out of it, you holding up number one when you crossed the finish line. Like to this day, I've only been at Emory for like 2 years, but to this day, that is still the most iconic photo I think I've ever seen.
Thank you. I can't say I like planned that, but it came to me. I was like, this is it. Like and it just, having that dream for so long, I was like, this is accomplishing that dream feels like nothing else. So, yeah.
So, what made you, or what kind of decision making was process was going through your mind to not take a COVID year and to say, you know what, like I've kind of done what I've needed to do.
Yeah. I thought a lot about it, obviously. I think, and so many people have taken advantage of it in incredible ways. And I've seen people who I competed with in college who have, gone on to D1 programs who are doing really great things, and people who have switched to different D3 schools who are doing really great things. And so yeah, I mean, I thought about it a lot, but at the end of the day, that my senior year, I was also and the summer before, I was doing an internship with US News and World Report with their health section. And so I was working part-time through my senior year of college, and I just loved that so much. And I knew that like that was my career path. And while yes, running in college would be over, I will always have running, and I'm still coached by Coach Ling, and he's fantastic. And I still live near Emory, and I'm lucky that my sports, like in the pandemic, it's something that I can do on my own and sort of with a team, and I can still feel really great about it, even not as part of a team. It's amazing to be part of the team at Emory, but for me, like I was ready, to go on to that next chapter, and I was ready. I had something that I knew I wanted to do, and that I was like ready to just continue into working. But it's been amazing to, still have people around, and I'm still competing and still running road races and track races. And I'm just lucky that I'm able to do that post collegiately.
So tell us a little bit more now that you're out of school, kind of more specifically what you're doing. Are you enjoying it, loving every day?
Yeah. Yeah. So I am writing for editing for US News and World Report. I work with our health section. I get to read and write a lot about nutrition and fitness and all kinds of health things. So that's amazing. And then I also still am running, I guess what you'd call semi-professionally. So I'm competing, occasionally winning money for races. I'm still being coached by Coach Lang, like I said, and I've just 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I was competing at the USATF, USA Track and Field 10K Road Championship. So I've gotten into road racing, and I love it. Road racing is so much fun. I kind of wish I had been able to do that in college. It's totally different than track or cross country, and so much fun. So I've done a couple of different road races. This summer I did a mile road race in Pittsburgh that was so much fun. So I'm able to do that in the fall, and then just I go to the same kind of meets, similar meets that I went to in college for track. So I can run indoor track and I can run outdoor track. I'm really hoping in the next couple of seasons to qualify for a USA championship in indoor or outdoor track. So yeah, I mean, I'm still able to have big goals and, dream really big. And I've been in some races with some amazing people, Olympians, all kinds of people. So seeing that next level and seeing what's still left to do is really inspiring.
Awesome. I did talk to Coach Derek before we met today, and he did say that if you ever want to use that year of eligibility, the door to Emory is always open.
Oh, I love it. They tell me all the time.
So last thing, I just want to ask, what is maybe one piece of advice that you would give to an athlete in high school and college? Just one piece of advice you might have.
Oh yeah. I think what you said about support systems is really meaningful to me. And so I think I would tell people that, you know, while you can work really hard and you can do everything right, but you really need to have those support systems, because there are going to be times when being an athlete is really difficult. And so having people around you who love you unconditionally, who support you, who are there for you when things are good or not good, who you can just talk to when you feel like, oh, I'm really anxious about this thing, or I've had a bad workout today and I just want to talk about it with somebody. I think whether that's your mom or your friends or your family, whoever it is, making sure you have those people around you is just so important because while things can go really well and it's great to celebrate, things can be tough. And so having those people around is really, really important. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much for joining
Yeah,
the
thank
podcast
you.
this week. It's been great, and we got some really, really good insight. Um, and again, if you ever want to come back to Emory, that door
Thanks.
is open.
I love it. Thanks for having me.